Well, good night, good night, good night, good night to all of you. Again, Happy New Year to those of you who I did not get a chance to say Happy New Year to because you did not join us earlier. But Happy New Year to you. And oh, what a wonderful Wednesday it is. We are in the phase of the budget presentation. And you know, this is a very, very exciting time. It's exciting for us on the opposition, as well as excited for those on the government's side. It's where they come to abuse and cuss and go on, and of course, fill us up with more empty promises. But you know, tonight I want to say congratulations to so many, many, many of us who are Guyanese, so many, many Guyanese near and far, as well as those within the diaspora. Because you know what? You have been speaking out every time the ministers stand there to present their aspect of the budget presentation. You are there commenting and letting them know that they're lying. Another failed promise, another failure, another failed promise. We're not going to be hoodwinked with these promises that you're giving us, because we know that this year is an elections year and we know what you're coming to us with. So, Guyanese, I'm so, so very proud of you. But you know what? This has got to be transformed on elections day. But we'll talk more about that. Allow me to extend birthday wishes to all those who celebrated their birthdays between last Wednesday and today. I know that it's a blessing to be alive, because you know what? Lots and lots of persons are not alive today, but it's a blessing that you are alive and you're celebrating another birthday. I want to also extend our condolences to those who have lost loved ones. It's not easy to lose someone who you've grown accustomed to having with you, because you know, death creates that separation where you'll never be able to see that person again, never be able to hold them, never be able to hear their laughter, and you know, that kind of thing. So it's hard, and we would want to let you know that our hearts are with you and that you're in our prayers. More especially, I want to extend our heartfelt condolences to the Honorable Roysdale Ford, SC, my colleague who lost his mother. Roysdale, our hearts are with you. Our prayers are with you. You're in our thoughts. And we trust that the memories of your mom will comfort you folks and will keep you going. And we also have, there are a few other stalwarts from the party who have transitioned. You too, we want to extend our condolences to your families, and we trust that your memories will continue to live on with them and it will be kept alive. Folks, I'm always excited when I'm here. I'm always, always excited. I want to tell you so much. Tonight, our topic is saying, woe be unto us with this 2025 budget. Remember, last year we had a $1.146 trillion. This year, it's 1.3. 1.3. So you notice these people are moving up the ladder, but where is the value for the monies? What are you seeing? Are you 1.3 million trillion dollars, sorry, richer? Are you there? Are you feeling it? Are you able to spend part of it? And I'm sure your answer is a resounding no. With me this evening is no stranger to any of this program or programs like these. He's a man to be reckoned with. He's Guyanese, of course, and of course, I'm quite happy that we're here again and we can talk to you. We can tell you about what is happening. We can share added information with you, and you can relate to us while we are on this program. Um, of course, I don't want to stand too much in between you and our guests. So I'm going to invite our guests to come right on. My friend, my brother, my followed friend, fallen friend, he's right here with us. Dr. Mark Definish. How are you doing this evening?
I'm quite well, very, very well.
We can't hear you. I'm not sure what is happening. We can't hear you.
Let me see. My mic is on. Can you hear me now?
I am not hearing you. I don't know what is happening. Let me hear. I don't know.
I can hear you
Um,
though. My mic is on.
I don't know what seems to be happening there. I don't know.
Can you hear me now?
I don't know what is happening there. Something is happening. I could barely hear what you're saying. I don't know. Maybe our listeners might be able to tell us if they're hearing you.
But I can hear you. Well, first and foremost, I would like to congratulate you on that very
Okay,
splendid.
so they're saying that they're hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, I'd like to congratulate you on that splendid presentation yesterday. It was quite informative, to be honest. And the take home for me is when you said garbage in, garbage out. That definitely epitomizes PPP definitely epitomizes garbage in, garbage out, because for this past 5 years, all we've been receiving is garbage and absolute. I don't know exactly how to describe what they've done, but PP has been definitely not been performing. Before I go, I would like to extend condolences to Rosedale Ford on the passing of his mom. You just mentioned it. I know it may be a very, very difficult time for him, but I just pray that he hold faith and he hold the memories of his mother and he hold it close to his heart. I quite understand it may be very, very difficult for him. I've lost my mom at the age of 8, so I could understand how difficult it is for him.
Mhm,
So I
mhm.
just extend condolences to him. Over the past few weeks, there were quite a few persons from the party who actually passed
Yeah,
away. I would
yeah,
like to
yeah.
extend condolences to those to the relative and the loved ones of those persons also. Death is a part of life basically, but death is something that we struggle to deal with. But I guess when someone dies, you just reflect on the good qualities that that person had and the time that you spent with that person.
So, Mark, we want to talk this evening about, we're going to talk about two sectors. We're going to talk about the education sector that I know you're competent for us, competent in speaking to, and we're going to talk about the health sector, since you're a medical doctor and you can
Mhm.
relate to what is happening here in Guyana. As a matter of fact, you were here and you are one of the brilliant minds that had to run because of the PPP,
Exactly.
because of victimization. So we're going to talk about that. But here
Mhm.
we are, Mark. Education. I am hearing all this big buzz and this big excitement about university being free, distribution of textbooks. We are distributing textbooks all across this country. We are ensuring that in the secondary schools, the learners there are given a hot meal, and in the primary schools from grades 3 to 6 are given hot meal. Tell us about your experience while you were in school in Guyana.
When I was in school again, I was in school under the Burnham period. We were able to get free school clothes. I remember we used to call it Burnham.
Born and bedding.
Yes, exactly. We had, but it was free. Um,
Mhm,
During break times in school, we would get biscuits and milk, and sometimes soft drinks. So
mhm,
when Priya and PP talks about introducing breakfast for kids. That was there since in the times of Barnum. The uniform used to be free since in the time of Barnum. Um, Exercise books used to be free. Remember those exercise books with the two time table and the four time tables at the back. and
Mm-hmm.
PPP try to replicate it, but they cannot get the multiplication correct.
Correct.
I remember those days. We also received free textbooks. So all this concept that they're talking about, they're giving the impression that they first created it. Without them, it wouldn't have existed. But we had all of those on the Burnham when I went to school. When I went to university, it was a very difficult time for me. I was always the outspoken one. I would always speak my mind at the university, and as a result, I was marked. And as a result of that, I was victimized at the University of Guyana in terms of the grades I received. Even when I went to GPHC and I worked at GPHC as an intern, I was victimized again. And because of that victimization, that caused me to actually leave the country I love, leave the country to go to a foreign land. But that's just the reality. That just sums up people on the whole. Once you are someone who speaks your mind, once you speak the truth, so to speak, they put you in the black books. And once you're in the
Mm-hmm.
black books, they just victimize you all the time. And as you said, that black books is housed at Freedom House. But once you find yourself into that black book, you can rest assured that you'll have to deal with people and the victimization and the vindictive ways. But the point I want to stress, this whole concept that people speaks about in terms of providing textbooks and exercise books and free meals for kids, I had all of that when I went to school on the Burnham time. It's not new. And if I remember quite clearly, on the Granger, he started this whole breakfast breakfast program also. It was also on the Granger because people for 23 years weren't particularly concerned in terms of how our kids survive in school, in terms of whether or not they would have had a breakfast. And Granger is the one who actually, Mr. Granger, President Granger is the one who actually reintroduced it back into schools. So when they talk about it, it isn't a new idea. It's something that has been around for quite a while now, and it's something that has been around on the PNC.
So I just want our viewers to understand, and especially our young viewers, to understand that the issuing, or I should say, the reintroduction, breakfast is a reintroduction that the PPP would have copied from the PNC and from the coalition. Textbooks is what they would have copied. And so it's a reintroduction. It's like the brand new secondhand girl, the song that the guys sing. So this is what the PPP they're all about. They're always coming back with these brand new secondhand ideas, initiatives, and then they paint the picture as if this is their initiative, as if this is what we're doing for you. But Mark, during the Burnham's era, during Burnham's reign as Prime Minister and President, we hadn't oil money.
We didn't. We didn't.
You know?
And
And
we had free education from primary to
tell us about it.
university.
Mhm. And you,
Free education.
sorry. And you know what, Mark? Back then, we exported canned pigeon peas, black eyed
Mm-hmm.
peas,
Mm-hmm.
pineapple. We had cashew nuts coming from the interior in Region
Mm-hmm.
9. We had our glass factory. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
We had Sonata Textiles, which now has been sold to a friend. So when we talk
Mm-hmm.
about the friend and the families and the favorites, they get upset when we talk about it. But Bobby Ramru bought that for next to nothing.
Exactly.
You know, and so when we look at the track record of the PPP, they are nothing but a group of scams. Of course, I can't use that word in Parliament, but I can use it here.
Or
They're
corrupt.
nothing but a bunch of scams and
Yes.
corruption. The C word, that the word that begins with C and ends with
And with
N,
N.
or sometimes you could just make it plural and say S.
Mm-hmm.
Corruption. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's the track record of the PPP. I was
Exactly.
just seeing today, a young man was showing us the stelling there in I think it's either Bartica or it's Essequibo on the Essequibo coast. And he was showing, look, hundreds of millions of dollars were spent here, given to this contractor. The contract was awarded hundreds of millions of dollars, and he was showing the piles that were laid down there, all out of sync with each other. And this is what the PPP do all the time. Ganesh spoke
Mm-hmm.
about it, the tendering process today. I spoke about it yesterday, that the contract is given, is being awarded even before it's tendered. And
Mm-hmm.
we know the cutbacks that come with it. And the PPP come now to Parliament and to behave like they come here with their sheep, wolf in sheep clothing performance, to give Guyanese the impression that they care so much about you. Mark, how do you care so much about persons? How do you care so much about children? Let's focus on education. How do you care so much about children when schools when students and teachers are being attacked by pigeons?
I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable. And not only pigeons alone they're being attacked by mosquitoes.
Mm-hmm.
There lots of school that doesn't have potable water. Lots of
Yes.
school doesn't have flush toilets. Lo, 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 Lots of school have poor ventilation.
Yep.
So it's not only the fact that the teachers themselves have to sit in classroom with insects. Not only the fact that they have to sit in classroom with poor ventilation, not only the fact that they have to sit in classrooms where they have bird dums all over the schools and all over the classroom. How can you actually focus on a classroom like that, on a classroom like those? And that's one of the underpinning reasons why our kids aren't performing. Because if we remember from the Maslow hierarchy of needs, the first thing that you need to satisfy in the Maslow hierarchy of needs is physical security or physiological security. How can you have those in those environments? Teachers have to go to school with insect repellent. Teachers have to go to school with a lash so as to protect
Mm-hmm.
themselves
Yep.
from being attacked. How can you actually work in a work environment like that? It's not conducive. It's not conducive to productive teaching at all. And this has been going on for quite a while now under this PPP. Not only the last 4.5 years, for 23 years it has been going on non-stop under this PPP, and they haven't been doing anything about it. All they focus on is the friends, the families, and their um, favorites in terms of contracts, but they don't care for the teachers. They don't care for the children either, and it's very unfortunate.
Mark, you have listed a couple of factors there that can directly hamper learning and the delivery. But let me say more to our viewers. Teachers have to go to schools where the grass sometimes reaches their knees or further than that. Teachers have to be contending with snakes in schools, snakes on the corridor, snakes in cupboards, snakes in teachers' drawers that they draw from their tables. Teachers have to be competing with animals because the compounds are not fenced in some schools. Teachers have to be competing with not only schools that are not fenced, but with animals barging into the schoolyard, dogs in schools. Teachers have to go to school and compete with not having proper security because there's no security guard at school. Teachers have to contend with when they go to school. I wonder if somebody will come in and rob me today.
Mhm.
Now, all of those factors are not important for the Minister of Education or for the PPP government. What is important for them is constructing schools here, a school there, a school everywhere, as if constructing more school buildings will ease the problem.
The fact is, I always believe that whenever you do an intervention, you take pause and you evaluate the outcome to see if it makes sense or if it is productive. Say, for example, you wake up one day and you hear a strange sound coming from your car, and you have a suspicion it may be something with the oil. So you put some oil into your car. That's the intervention. And after that, you would turn on your car to make sure that you're not hearing that song anymore, that knocking song anymore. And if you don't hear that knocking song, then you can confidently say the intervention was a positive intervention. But if you hear the song still, then you have to do something else and continue doing something until you actually address the issue of this
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of the songs that you're hearing. Since PP has been in power, since PP has been installed into power in 2020, they've been doing infrastructure works from day one. So 2020 they've done infrastructure works. 2021 they've done infrastructure works.
Mm-hmm.
2022, 2023, 2024. So you would want to believe at some point in time they would take pause and say, let's see how this infrastructure work is actually, if it's a benefit to our children in terms of the outcomes. But they're not focusing on the outcomes. They're not focusing on the outcomes, but the outcomes is what we will actually talk about. For example, in the NGSA, only 66% of the children were able to pass in English. In the NGSA, in an English-speaking country, only
Mm-hmm.
66% of the children can actually pass. In the NGSA, maths, only 40% were actually able to pass, gain a pass grade in the NGSA maths. For the indigenous kids, it's worse than that. For the indigenous kids, only 37% were able to pass English and only 80% were able to pass maths. You would think people would actually take pause and said, okay, we're doing infrastructure works and the grades are getting worse. The grades aren't improving, the grades are getting worse. So it's pointing towards the fact that you need to do a different intervention, but they don't care. But we can also continue to talk about the other outcomes that they refuse to speak about. Under Granger, under President Granger, under APNU AFC, in maths, the pass rate was 48%. Under PPP with oil and all the investments that they've been doing, the pass rate went down to 31%, dropped
Mm-hmm.
by 17%. In
17.
English, the pass rate was 78%, and it dropped by 10% down to 68% on the PP with oil. And at no point in time are they thinking we need to take pause and evaluate the outcome to see if the outcome is pointed towards a positive intervention. No, they don't care. We can continue. We can continue with the statistics they don't want to hear. Only
Mm-hmm.
less than 40% of our children are leaving school with five subjects, including maths and English. Less than 40% of our children. 50% of our children are dropping out of school.
Yep.
50% of our children are dropping out of school. Our matriculation rate is 26%. Only 26% of our kids are going to university. Every year, 10,000 kids are dropping out, are leaving school without any substantive qualification. So clearly what they're doing, the intervention that they're doing in terms of infrastructure work, is not being reflected in positive outcomes. So it's about time now that they take a pause and try to establish why our kids aren't performing.
Mark, these are the kinds of facts that Priya doesn't want to hear. And like you were saying, one would think that you would take a rain check
Mm-hmm.
and decide, look, man, something not going right here. But the fact that you are so full of yourself and the ego within you, it makes it difficult for you to be able to correct the wrong. Because look at what has happened. We have seen, and I'm happy that Priya said yesterday that they will not rest. But she wasn't saying, what she should have been saying is that she will not rest because those 20 lives from Madia, the
Mm-hmm.
screams of those children will continue to haunt her. But she's not
Exactly.
going to say that. And that's why she
Mm-hmm.
just take Parliament to come and sleep, because when she go home, she can't sleep. She can't sleep when she go home. So she got to come in
Exactly.
Parliament to sleep. The fact that we could have a national exam, the National Grade 6 Assessment exams last year, with a $1.146 trillion budget, and the results were announced. And by the time the results were announced, 5 minutes after, they had to recall the results. What do you say to that? That there is saying to us that the minister and our entire team, they are inefficient and they are incompetent. And I really don't want to blame the team so much, but I have to throw some blame at them, because many of our people, many of the public servants are scared. They are scared. They can't speak. And so when the minister tell them to do this and do that and fix this so and fix that so, they have to fix it to please the minister. Because you notice the minister glorifies herself with the top 100.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we would have 15,000 primary school learners writing the national grade 6 exams, 15,000 boys and girls. And all you are interested in is the top 100.
That is very unfortunate, and it's just evidence to show how arrogant PPP is. We can continue examining this input, this intervention, evaluation, or outcomes. Ashni Singh was there boasting that how 99,000 teachers enter CPC and 4,800 graduate. I was posting also about the online program that I have. But as you clearly outlined yesterday in your presentation, he's totally clueless. He doesn't know that in the hinterlands they don't have internet. So you could do how much online you want to do, but if it's not able to reach the teachers in the internet, in the hinterlands, it will be completely useless. Teachers there have to use their data, as you said yesterday in your presentation. But the point I'm trying to make here is this. If infrastructure works was the thing to actually help develop our education system, it would have been evident in terms of improved performances. And as you describe it as a rain check. But they're training teachers, but yet teachers have to hold a class, conduct a class, where they have twice the number of children that is supposed to have, despite you training all these teachers all the time. So you're doing an intervention, you're training teachers all the time. You have an outcome where you have less teachers being in the classroom, despite you training. Then there must be something that is happening. And what is actually happening is that the teachers are migrating. The teachers are migrating and going to the other Caribbean islands. I remember when I left Guyana and I went to St. Lucia initially, I was amazed that the pay I received was 5 times the pay I was receiving in Guyana. And St. Lucia doesn't have oil. St. Lucia got bauxite. St. Lucia got rice. They get diamond. All St. Lucia has is tourism. That's all they have. But yet they were able to pay me 5 times the pay I was actually receiving in Guyana. And the same thing was evident with teachers also. They were being significantly paid compared to how much they're paid in Guyana. So the underlying reason why your kids aren't performing in school is that they don't have the teachers in school. The teachers are leaving. And so if you're doing these interventions where you build and it's not working, it's time you take pause and say, look, what we need to invest in the salaries for teachers. If they're being paid X amount in these Caribbean islands, we pay them 2x twice the amount. So as to get them back here, so as to attract the best from the Caribbean to come into Ghana and teach. We won't be the first to actually do that. It was actually done in Singapore. They do it in America, also they do it in these westernized countries, where they invest in teachers salary, and as a result, the teachers are encouraged to stay, and you can also attract foreign teachers to actually come into your country and teach. So the underlying reason why the education system is in a shambles is because people is just doing the wrong thing. Infrastructure work for friends, family, and favorites. And unless they actually stop that or slow the pace up on that and focus on teachers teachers pay, then teachers will continue to leave and will continue to have poor grades.
Well, Mark, I'm happy that you touched on that aspect, which is talking about what is hindering our learners from performing, and there are two factors that you touched on: remuneration and conditions of work. And in the
Mhm.
conditions of work, we can also include training. Let's talk about the lecturers. For part time, if you're a full time lecturer, you receive the same salary as a regular teacher out there. As a regular teacher in the classroom, you receive the same salaries for teaching at the teachers training college.
Wow.
So that in itself is one factor that will cause people not to be able to perform the way they ought to perform. Secondly, those who are offering their service, and I would say free because you're doing part time lecturing. Mark, you know what the rates are? The rates for part time lecturing: $700, $1,000, $1,200, and $2,000. $700 if you have a diploma, you're going to be teaching there. If you have a first degree, 1,000. If you have a master's degree, 1,200. And if you have a doctorate, 2,000. You see how they're
Mhm.
ambitious? Who with a doctorate would want to go and lecture $2,000 per hour? You tell me.
Well, it's just complete joke. It's just complete joke. If you want to attract the best, you have to provide attractive salaries to attract the best and an attractive working environment. If you don't have a good working environment, if you don't have a good salary, then you can't attract the best. And that's the reason why the education system continued to decline. I remember under Burnham, Guyana was considered as the brightest, having the brightest in the
Yeah.
Caribbean under Burnham. And we didn't have oil, On the Burnham, we were on the Burnham in terms of these behaviors that are that we see in the schools presently. The one there. I remember on the Burnham. I can't recall ever seeing a mosquito in my classroom on the Burnham. I can't recall ever seeing birds and bird down in my school on the
Flooded,
Burnham, even
flooded,
on the
flooded
Queen.
classrooms.
But flooded classrooms. I can't recall the bushes being high, and we didn't have oil. But what we had on the border, we had pride, and that pride was what was actually able to drive us to get the work done. And even though even though we weren't a rich country at that point in time, we were still able to actually achieve things. But people seem to have their priorities all mixed up. I was reading the other day about this gold business that we're talking about. Ghana online, Ghana online, Ghana online something gold, GOAL. This is a complete joke. I cannot believe it in the space of 3 years. 378 persons graduated with PhDs from the gold. That's just ridiculous. That just shows the priority. We have 10,000 kids dropping out from school, but yet we still have such bright people at 376,
Mhm.
376, and people graduated masters, people graduated postgrad diplomas, and all this kind of stuff. It just points to the fact that this gold business, this gold is someone is receiving paybacks, and
Yep.
these results that are actually having are just fabricated results. They're not genuine results because it's absolutely impossible to do a PhD, 376 PhD within 3 years. You've done two masters, so you understand how difficult it is to actually do a master's. Multiply that by 5, and that would be the difficulty of a PhD. It's very difficult to actually complete a PhD within 3 years. But yet we have 376 persons, and they've allocated 5.5 billion towards the goal again, towards goal for 2025, hoping to
But
attract 9,000 scholars. And the question is, where are they getting these scholars from? Some persons are saying it's PP associates from overseas who are actually utilizing the gold, but clearly it can be from the local population. Something is definitely wrong. People has the priorities completely mixed up, completely mixed up.
I say this all the time, and more especially in the education sector. When the minister jumps out there to talk about this and to talk about that and to talk about the other, is the minister really in touch with what is happening? And I'm saying that to say the Ministry of Education and the Minister of Education, they're always reactive, always reactive.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the pigeons at Charlestown Secondary. The school was closed for a week, and then the minister turns up there like the savior, and she's coming to have a meeting with the parents and the teachers. What foolishness is this? Where were you during the Christmas holidays?
Exactly.
Where were you during the August vacation? I mean, to see those pigeons there, it can't mean that these pigeons turn up there, what, the week before school reopened? And when you listen to the teachers and you listen to the students and you listen to the cleaners, they tell you it has been something going on for a long time. They have been writing, they have been speaking, they have been shouting, and nobody paying them any mind. You know what happened? When the teachers called the union, we said it,
Mm-hmm.
enough was enough. And so we went there, we visited, we saw what was happening, and we called the media. It's only
Mm-hmm.
when you publicize these issues, then you see the minister and her officers, they're all scrambling to come to do damage control when the damage has already been done. A
Mm-hmm.
cleaner there was plucked in her face, in her eyes by one of the pigeons.
Wow.
And it was not only the plucking in the eye or the attack that the cleaner got. The cleaner was hospitalized the next day she went into labor because she was pregnant. The next day she went into labor. I hope the ministry taking care of that cleaner because the eye got infected, and then coupled with that, she went into labor. She got a baby. So I'm hoping that they're taking good care of that cleaner, or we will have to advise that cleaner what to do. I mean, these people just don't care about the ordinary people. They just don't care. Minister Manik Chand, you see her. School reopens, and her focus is North Georgetown and or East Georgetown. South Georgetown is far from her mind. Or
Mm-hmm.
she may visit one or two schools in South Georgetown, in the South Georgetown area. I remember her visiting East Rumvelt, and she went there because they did an expansion. They did an expansion to the building. They built another block, so she went there to composite herself. North Rumvelt Multilateral School that she visited the other day is because they had to they rebuilt that part of the school, which is not yet properly fixed because there are cracks, the toilet's not working, they're still experiencing flooding because of what was done there in terms of the foundation that was laid. Again, incompetent people they're putting to do these jobs because it's a payback for them. So she went to North Rumvelt Secondary School to talk about this brand new spanking school and all kind of thing. And could you imagine, with all the talks about this brand new spanking school, Priya Manik Chand is there ringing a grandfather bell after a $1.146 trillion budget,
Mm-hmm.
ringing a
Yeah.
grandfather bell. I mean, this woman has no shame. She has no class. If you're going
Mm-hmm.
to rebuild a school and you talk about state of the art school and you're talking about the labs and so on, you mean you're still ringing bell, holding bell and ringing it in your hand? You can't put an electronic bell there? This is a
Priya is
pity for us.
completely clueless. Priya, I always describe her as a square peg in wrong hole. And when I describe her as a square peg, I don't mean body habitus because she tends to misinterpret it to think I'm saying that she's square. I'm not saying she's square. I'm not saying she's a square peg in a wrong hole. She's completely incompetent. And she's someone, a good leader, learns to take responsibility. When those 20 kids died, rather than take responsibility, to pass responsibility onto someone else. And when they had to see why she wasn't even interviewed.
Nope.
She wasn't even interviewed. She wasn't even there to begin with. And in any civilized society, 20 children dying meant would have meant heads would have rolled, and the first head that
Mm.
would have actually rolled is her head. But she
Yes.
never take responsibility for that. We had 4 schools literally burned down. After the first school burned down, you would have thought prayer would have actually took pause and said, okay, what caused the fire in this school? Is it possible it could cause fires in other schools? No, she didn't. Then a second school burned down. She didn't take pause to actually ask herself, could this happen in other schools? Could this happen when kids are in the schools? No, she didn't care. A third school burned down, Christchurch. A fourth school born in North Multilateral School, then it's St. George's School born. And
Mhm.
on to a day like today, they haven't taken steps to make those schools safe as regards to fire. The schools doesn't have fire alarms, they don't have smoke alarms, they don't have the basic, they don't have extinguishers. And all these things are important to address a fire if the fire starts in the school. And the fact that 20 kids died and these schools onto a day like today don't have fire alarms, fire extinguishers, smoke alarms. It's just evidence how incompetent, how completely incompetent she is. She's a complete square peg in wrong hole, and she's completely clueless. And as you aptly describe her, garbage
Mhm.
in, garbage out. And that's what she epitomizes, garbage in and garbage out. And it's only time before she's out of a job. Next election she'll be out of a job because we can't have her being this installment minister of education and is performing. It's just sad and unfortunate that PPP as a party don't actually appraise their ministers and appraise them to see what kind of job they're actually performing and to see if they're performing up to standard. It's really unfortunate. In westernized societies, that happens all the time. If a minister isn't performing, a minister would be kicked out. Would be kicked out. And when you're dealing with the integral ministry, like Ministry of Education, you have to have competent people actually dealing with that. And Priya is definitely completely incompetent. She's just clueless. All she cares about is going to certain schools and pampersette herself. But in terms of actually doing real work, she's lazy. I was actually amazed. I was actually amazed to see she went to Parliament with a blanket. So before she actually left home, she already predetermined that she's gonna go sleep in Parliament when Ashley Singh is talking in a blanket, and then she's arguing and saying, "Oh, I was sick. I had the flu." If you had the flu, you're not supposed to be there, Priya. You could infect others. But that's just evidence how clueless and incompetent she is, and she'll continue to be clueless and incompetent because people is not doing anything about it. As a matter of fact, they're all cluelessly incompetent. So, so it isn't a case. It isn't a case that one party could look at the other and say, "Well, you need to pull your socks up," because all of them are just cluelessly incompetent. And but the unfortunate reality with Priya Manchan being installed Minister of Education, the unfortunate reality is that she has jurisdiction over our children. And the unfortunate
Yep.
reality also is that because of our poor leadership, that will filter down, and that means that our kids will have poor education. And unless
Yep.
she's actually changed, unless people is actually changed, removed, we continue to have those very, very poor results in our schools.
Mark, I hear you talk about the fires, but you know what? We have up to a day like today, we have not yet seen those reports of what caused those fires. I heard her yesterday saying in Parliament, oh, one of the fire was caused by arson. And this is what they're saying, that the Christchurch fire was caused by arson. Now, if you will remember where Christchurch is located, we have
Campan
churches on
on Middle
Camp and
Street.
Middle Street. We have churches just over the road. They have cameras. We have the Prime Minister's office not too far from there. We have
Uh-huh.
another business place opposite churches right on Middle Street there. All around Middle Street there, in front of Christ Church and going all the way down. We have cameras. We got King's Place there with the club and all of that. We got Sidewalk Cafe. We got so many other business places down there. And nobody's camera could tell us who was there that caused the fire. Now,
If I
all
can
they do.
interject,
Sure,
correct, just
sure.
excuse me. Christchurch, the fire started in the lab the day before. The school nearly burned down. They barely rescued the lab. You would have thought that someone would have thought and said, what is it in this school that caused this fire to happen? Let me make sure it doesn't happen again. Nothing was done. Next thing you know, they ordered the next day, the school burned down.
And it's by arson. Somebody said the fire
Yes, by
there.
arson,
Now,
yes.
now, prayer should have been sent packing. Where are your security guards? And how many
Mm-hmm.
security guards you had at the school? So if it was arson, where were the guards?
Mm-hmm.
You,
Exactly.
you see how they show themselves up all the time? She's trying to throw the blame somewhere else, not taking responsibility for that.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the grade 6 results. The results are out, and what is printed on those results slips. You have social studies 24, and I'm using numbers loosely here. Social
Mm-hmm.
studies 24, mathematics 67, science so much, language arts so much. You have language arts 10, social studies maybe 25. When you add that and you're expected to have 225, you get 199. And so the child is awarded a school that falls within that 199 range. And when the
Mm-hmm.
parents add up their scores and they realize, hey, this addition ain't right, all Priya Manikchan could tell her staff to do is to ask head teachers to inform the parents to return those slips. To return those slips. And that is
Garbage
why
in, garbage out.
we've always heard, Mark,
Mm-hmm.
that the certain people's children, they only go there as a show to write the exams, but their places are already secured at some schools or at certain schools.
Exactly. I could say I had one example of a young man whose father was a politician. He's still a politician in PPP. Got passed to go to QC. I taught this child in third form. This child was completely clueless. Clueless. He's not supposed to be in the school to begin with. But that is not an isolated case. I'm quite sure it happens quite commonly with other kids of influential persons in PPP or other kids who the parents have connections with PPP. And they just can get them into the top schools. And when they actually go there, they can't perform. It so happened that this young man was so horrible that he got himself into problems subsequently where he pulled a gun on
Wow.
on his sister-in-law, and he was in front of the courts for it. But it's all stemmed from the fact that he was placed in an environment, a QC environment, where he wasn't comfortable. And there's rumors abound that he burned down the school. I wouldn't call us who, but there's
I,
rumors
I,
abound that he burned down the
I
school.
think I know that name. I think I know who that child is. But we've had so many reports. As a matter of fact, there are reports that the minister's daughter, when she was at primary school, she was not performing, and
Mm-hmm.
the learners there who were performing, when the grade 6 results came out, she outperformed them.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Exactly.
we'll see what happens at CSEC and so on, because you can't. Well, I can't say you can't bribe the people you can't bribe what happens there, because
It's harder to bribe in CSEC. It's much harder to bribe in CSEC. But I think we cannot move away from the fact that our education sector is in crisis.
it
It's in
isn't
severe
right.
crisis, and the evidence is in the numbers. The numbers of our kids. When you have only 66% of your kids passing English in an
Then you know.
English-speaking country, that's very depressing. When you look
Mhm,
at our indigenous kids, only 37% passing English. That's
mhm.
very concerning. And if I were PPP, I would have actually put pause on infrastructure development, slow the pace up, and focus more on teachers' salaries, focus more on teachers' working environment. and get the best teachers to come and teach our children, because we have all that we rich. But if PP is to reduce the infrastructure works that they're doing, that means less funds will go to their friends, families, and
Yep,
favorites, because
you
it
got it.
should the root of corruption, based on what Transparency International says. Transparency International clearly outlined that that infrastructure works is the medium used by kleptocratic regimes to
Yep,
actually to, 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 to actually foster corruption, and that is an absolute fact that came out of an article I read from Transparency International. But our education sector will continue to be in crisis, because unfortunately PP doesn't care about our kids. They speak about because we care. We could actually go back to COVID, when they kept their kids out of school for 2 years. They were
hmm,
opening every place else except the schools.
except the schools.
Except the schools, they open hotels, brotels, every place else except the schools. And even when the kids were at home, the type of learning material that they had was rudimentary. It wasn't anything that kids could actually use to learn. And the teachers again who had to come and intervene, have the kids come in school with the exercise book, put certain questions and things for them to take home. They take it home, bring it back, and teachers were the forefront to our kids having an education during the COVID. Because if it was up to PPP, those kids would have just stayed home and would not have done nothing, absolutely nothing. And then
Hmm.
Manachan will get on our high horses and say, because we care, because we
Because
care,
we care.
because we
Just
care,
just the
because we
same
care less.
just the same way she's saying we will not rest. And I'm happy that she's not going to rest because you know, they're outside of the 20 lives. The
Mm-hmm.
writing is already on the wall and they're seeing it. And so that is why they will not rest. And if you recognize, viewers, that is why they're hurrying to spend so much money. They're putting so much in the budget so that they can steal the monies and keep it for
Mm-hmm.
themselves. But I want to give them a warning. All
Mm-hmm.
those monies that you're collecting, you better put it in a corner because you will have to refund it. You will have to
Exactly.
repay those monies. All of you, Priya, all of you. Right now, there's a scandal in the Ministry of Education with some $100 million that can't be found. There's also a scandal that the minister and the PS and the CEO at war because who want to take this money and who don't want to. So there are lots of scandals. There are
Mm-hmm.
scandals when workshops are conducted because you are the officer assigned to conduct the workshop. You preparing the meals, you're preparing the beverages, you're preparing the handouts, everything you're doing. So is a lot of flat foot hustlers we got around the place. And that is why education will continue to slide down that sloping hill that it's going down because it's not any longer about the service, it's about how much we can get. If you check the
Exactly.
Ministry of Education, just the other day I was highlighting the fact that Prime Minister Modi came here from India. He got plenty troubles in India and he's coming here to talk about what should be done here and what this and what that, and he has
Mm-hmm.
the audacity to quote unquote, they see him as a world renowned leader.
Mm-hmm.
But let me say to our people, it was his party that killed, you know who? The Gandhi guy,
Mahatma
Mahatma
Gandhi.
Gandhi.
Mm-hmm.
It was his party that killed Mahatma Gandhi. Now he came here. The PPP allowed him to go to this school and they allowed him to meet with this set of people and that set of people so that he can return to India to say he visited this Caribbean nation called Guyana. And this
Mm-hmm.
nation, this Caribbean nation is a mini India where Indians are excelling in education, in business, in this, in that, in everything. And we are a multiracial society. Now, if
Exactly.
it were an African leader had come here and
And
returned
said
to their
that.
country to say that, you would have heard the outcry. And so all the PPP is about is creating superiority or superior race, one race superior to another. That's all they're doing. And the thing is not about the entire race,
Mhm.
our entire Indo population. It's about the few, the friends, the families, and the
And the
favorites, the elite
favorites.
ones. Because
Mhm.
they did not take Prime Minister Modi. Why they didn't carry him to Tain on the
Mhm.
quarantine? Huh?
Mhm.
Why they didn't carry him to Lenora to walk and talk to the people in the villages, in the village there? Why they didn't carry him to Anna Katrina? Why they didn't carry him to Sarah Joanna? Huh?
Mhm.
But no, it's not about the ordinary Guyanese. It's about friends and families.
Families.
Ministry of Education again is
Mhm.
a whole lot of, not, you're not being appointed anymore. Is a whole lot of selection and selection and selection. So it's a whole
Mhm.
lot of selected people. You're not appointed anymore. As long as you're
Mhm.
close to them, you're selected. The chief education officer that we have there was no vacancy notice put out there, no application sent in, no shortlisting done, no interviewing process, but a man was selected and he was placed there as the chief education officer. You know,
Well, it has the correct
we got
name.
the school
Saddam
boards
Hussein. Mhm.
where you put somebody there who's supposed to be, quote unquote, according to the boys on the street, supposed to be some family of yours.
Mhm.
You got other officers who, this one coming here and they acting and they acting, and that one coming there and they acting. The next thing you hear, oh, this person's did this and that person's did that. A whole lot of selectees you got. And this person performing the duties and that person performing the duties. I mean, all the standards have been watered. All.
Exactly, and it's not only a case that Priya is incompetent, she's a scraper, she's delusional. The other day I heard in my own 2 years, I heard Priya said that teachers are leaving the private sector to come and teach in the public sector. I've never heard such ridiculous nonsense in my life as yet. Because the public sector is so good and we have a surplus of teachers. So if you have a surplus of teachers, why do teachers have such big classes? Why do you have such big classes if you have a surplus? You'd expect that with a surplus, rather than a teacher having 40 kids in her class, his or her class, they probably have 20 if there's a surplus. But they don't care. The PP don't care. They just don't care, and they will continue to not care, and they continue to boast about because we care, but they don't care about our kids. They simply do not care about their kids.
Just don't care. You know, we have schools in Guyana in this 21st century with $1 trillion budget. We got schools that are only sunny weather schools. When it rains, the children got to be holding up umbrellas in their classrooms. We have schools where toilets can't flush. The cleaners got to fetch water to flush the toilet. Teachers have to fetch water to flush the toilets. We have schools where the teachers are teaching and they have to compete with contractors who nail in, contractors who sawing, contractors
Mhm.
who painting, and the teachers have to compete with that. They have
And the
to
kids
inhale the scent
also.
of paint, and the children have to inhale. How can effective learning take place if you're having these kinds of nonsense in the schools? I just don't know. And Priya think she and her officers, they think that they're doing so well. Huh? How do
She's
you do well?
delusional.
Oh my gosh. It's a pity that we have to deal with these kinds of misfit people. It's a
Mhm.
pity. But you know what? Like I said in my presentation yesterday, Guyanese still have an opportunity to do the right thing. They
Exactly.
still have an opportunity to do the right thing. Imagine a beam fell on a parent's head, burst her head
Mhm.
at Bushlot Secondary School. She went to attend
Wow.
a PTA meeting. A beam fell
Wow.
on her head. That woman could have been dead, and it's okay. In our school system, with all of these monies that have been assigned to education, you check the schools. There is no school. There is no guidance counselor in every school with all the monies that we're
Exactly.
using. And so the social ills will continue to plague this society because, again, they just don't care. And so teachers are burdened with that other aspect now, to be counselor, mother, father, this, that. Teachers themselves don't know how to deal with abuse. And you have to deal with children who are being abused at home. How do you deal with that and then still effectively deliver in front of your classroom?
It's just unfortunate because they focus on the wrong thing. And it's the same thing with health also. Because for health, they just focusing on building hospitals. They allocate 28 billion to build new hospitals, 28 billion for drugs. And when you actually look at it, that is actually more than 40% of what has been allocated for health. And it's just unfortunate because at the end of the day, it's the average man who will have to feel the squeeze when they steal.
Yep.
It's the average man that has to go at GPHC. It's the average man who has to go to health center. Let me just read what a doctor said. I think you alluded to the doctor at Tamari Hospital, Tamari
Yes.
Health Center.
Mark,
Says,
Mark, just before you go, operator, could you play that video for us? Could you play that, put that one on for us?
Member of the community of Tamari, but I work here. I'm the only doctor at Tamari Health Center. So I serve this community every day. And I'm here this afternoon because I have some concerns about the facilities that we have at the health center. I have concerns about us not getting drugs in a timely manner. We have to ration out drugs. We have to tell patients, well, you can't get 2 months of drugs this month. You could only get one. You're going to have to check back in with us to see if we have the medication for you. A few months ago, we were out of simple things like Panadol. We had to ask our patients to be buying nasal drops for their babies when they're in cold, when they have colds, right? When I first came to Tamari Health Center, we didn't even have blades to incise abscesses or gloves, right? I had spent my own money, bought the gloves, bought the blades, came to work, did my best for this community. I'm advocating for the staff at the health center. We've currently been without flushable toilets for several months. We're fetching water in buckets to flush the toilet for the staff at the health center. We have had issues where the health centers have been flooding because of the toilets. So we're having to dispose of our limited supplies. When the water gets in and soaks the gauze and all of those things, we have to dispose of those things. We're not able to use them anymore. Then we have delays in getting the medication to us, getting the supplies to us. I don't know if it's because that you were coming today, they sent some supplies yesterday to tide us over. You know how those things go. We don't have any AC in our pharmacy bond. So the pharmacist has to turn on her outside AC, open the door, and she's often cold to ensure that the drugs are stored at the right temperature. We have trees growing onto the building. We've asked for those trees to be cut down. The compound hasn't been weeded since November. We have trees growing onto the building. That's eventually going to cause a problem with the roof. So we have a lot of concerns with the health center. We don't have a permanent cleaner. We don't have a clerk. So we have 2 pathway workers. They come in more than their 10 days because they recognize the need for us to be clean and tidy, and they work more than the time they're supposed to help us out. But we have to carry a lot of that weight.
That is unfortunate.
Yes. So here we have Mark coming from the horse's mouth, not
Mouth.
Coretta saying,
Exactly.
not Mark saying, coming from the horse's mouth. And so you see why people are so stressed out and they can't do what they're supposed to do. You're paying them a little bit monies already, and they're gonna use the same monies, just like teachers, to buy gauze and to buy blades. Teachers got to use the same monies to buy chalk, to give a child lunch, to buy a sanitary napkin for a child. I mean, and we boasting. I heard Frank today boasting about what they did and what the coalition did not do during COVID. Man, we don't want to hear about what happened during COVID. We want to hear about what you have failed to do with $1.146 trillion, and now you get 1.3 trillion.
is and it's not only this young doctor is talking about the difficulties in her work environment. IDB came to Guyana in 2022, and they did an inspection of our healthcare sector. And these are some of the observations that they made. None of the hospitals had continuous treated water, electricity, or basic medication. This is in 2022. PPP are after spending over 100 billion in the healthcare. 24 hospitals, including GPAC, were in deplorable states of disrepair. Many hospitals are without basic equipment. Doppler, ultrasound scan, sterilizers, IUCD evacuation equipment, and cold storage. Cold storage is very important to store some drugs. They don't have it in the hospitals. There is no facility for hazardous disposal. So what they have to do, they have to burn these hazardous drugs in the backyard, basically. They also observed that they lack EMTs. Lots of hospitals lack EMTs and ambulances. They went on. They said bed sharing is common. I remember on the Apple AFC, they were able to completely eliminate bed sharing. Bed sharing was a thing of the past. When this IDB came in 2022 to do this inspection, that's what I actually saw. GPH only has 6 operating theaters for both emergencies and elective. The emergency department can only accommodate half the patients. So the other half of the patients will have to wait outside and wait on their turn. And these were some of the observations that the IDB made after this government would have invested billions and billions and billions of dollars into the healthcare system. And despite those investments, the healthcare system is still in a deplorable state. So what that tells you that the money is going to friends, families, and favorites due to corruption. And that's why the average man can't see the benefits of this $1 trillion
budget.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Mark, it is so disgusting. It is so annoying. It's like you just can't find words to express how these people, these gangsters, are treating the ordinary Guyanese. Now, Frank Anthony stood up there to talk about all the things. He quotes Michael Jackson, the Michael Jackson song. Do you remember? Oh, this. Do you remember what happened during COVID? And under COVID, during the coalition's term in office, we had what, maybe 1 or 2 deaths? How many resulted when the PPP took over?
At the end of it, they had 1,399 deaths on the PPP.
The maternal deaths was a thing of the past under the coalition. By the time the PPP got back into office, maternal deaths again. We had 2 recently. 2 we had recently, where mothers have died, their children, the babies dying. Baby dying inside of the mother, and the doctors ain't know that. I mean, and Frank Anthony still standing up there, got the audacity to stand up there to talk a lot of foolishness. But do you remember? And do you remember? One company got 40 contracts to bring drugs in this country. One company. You know?
Dr. Bobby Ramroop.
You know? And these people, it's as if what? This one company is qualified, or maybe is that one company put in the bid? Got to be the one company put in the bid. Homes are shattered with these deaths. Mothers are dying and leaving their other children. And these people have no decency within them. All they can tell you, an investigation is on the way. An investigation is on the way. And you don't ever hear
the outcome of the investigation.
You know, when are we going to wake up and understand what exactly these people are doing to us? But again, Guyanese people have the opportunity to make that change. Like one of our Calypsonians said, we need a change. We got too much money. We need a change. We need a change, and a change has got to come somehow. Mark, we have all these school buildings across this country. You're not talking about rehabilitating some of these dilapidated schools that we have. Frank Anthony not looking to rehabilitate some of these hospitals that we have and to put proper systems in these hospitals. We got the University of Guyana, rather than ensuring that our university becomes the top university. You know what they're doing? They're giving all the monies out to gold. That's where we're giving the monies, to gold.
Exactly.
Everything is gold. Everything is gold. Everything is
and the
gold.
University is not a university of standard.
You know, the teachers have been complaining. They have to be up at 1 and 2 o'clock in the mornings. The language creates a barrier. And when they ask questions and to say, well, look, we don't understand this, we don't understand that, the lecturers are upset with them, and then they blank them, they take them out of the classes and all kind of things. And Priya Manik Chan would stand there along with Sonia Parag, the other gangster, and they would go on, they would abuse and go on. I mean, these people, Guyanese people, I'm hoping, viewers, that you are listening and you're making note of the information we are giving to you. Because another 5 years of the PNC, of the PPP, another 5 years of the PPP, we are going to be worse off than our brothers and sisters in Haiti. And don't let me talk about Haiti, because that's another story all by itself. I am hoping now that Mia Mortley, who is the chairman of CARICOM again, that she's listening to some of what people are saying, because she came here and announced that the elections was free and fair, but you're not hearing her talking about the injustices that is being meted out to people. You're not hearing that. And it's really, really disgusting. But we have got to continue to put the kind of information out there. Mark, what are some of your recommendations for education and health?
Well, I just have one recommendation for education and health. Get rid of PPP. That'd be my recommendation. My personal view is that infrastructure works is very important. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do infrastructure works, but I strongly believe that you can cut back on infrastructure works and use that fund to fund teachers' salary. You can cut back on infrastructure works and focus on the repairs of school to make sure that the working environment that our teachers are exposed to is up to standard. So that would be the first thing I'd actually say. Cut back on the funding for infrastructure works and reallocate that to schools, to teachers' salary, and reallocate it to refurbishing of schools. The other thing I would actually suggest that they do is go back to basics. Go back to basics in terms of education for our kids. It doesn't really make sense you have an education system which is just focused on the elites. Our education system is quite elitist. So I would suggest that you go back to basics where they get rid of common entrance and have kids go to school close to their homes, because the common entrance is very elitist and lots of kids are being left behind as a result. In terms of for health, so it's just two recommendations. Three recommendations: get PP out, cut back on the funding for infrastructure works, and canceling common entrance. Basically, let kids go to school, invest in all the schools so that all the schools will be of quality, and so the kids can actually go to the schools close to their homes, and no kid won't be left behind. Frank Anthony was saying, "Do you remember?" I mean, there's some things I want to remind him before I put my recommendation. Ghana has the lowest life expectancy in Latin America and the Caribbean. Ghana has the highest neonatal mortality rate. Ghana has the highest maternal mortality rate. In other words, mothers are dying in our hospital. Ghana has the highest rate of infant mortality. Childhood malnutrition is prevalent. Highest rate in Latin America and the Caribbean. So there are lots of things that we see happening in the healthcare, but yet the outcomes aren't up to standard. So the first thing I would suggest that they do for the healthcare is that they focus more on developing primary care, in other words, the health centers, and focus more on preventative medicine, so that patients don't actually reach a stage where they have end-stage disease, if you could actually prevent it. So invest in our primary care. The other thing I would suggest to do, focus on the basics. Try to get the basics right. I saw Frank Anthony was talking about laparoscopic kidney transplant and all those of nonsense. And people are dying from basic, simple diseases in the hospital. Focus on the simple things first. Focus on the basics. So those would be my recommendations for health and for education. But my overarching recommendation is to get rid of PPP. Just vote them out.
Well, Mark, you're saying the same thing that many persons are saying. Even some of their supporters are tired and fed up with them, because even them, they're not getting any of the crumb. And people are saying, like I said yesterday, the crumbs doesn't taste the same way as the loaf. Those who were at the Diamond Ball, the ordinary man could not have afforded to go there. And so again, it's like Ganesh said today, it's more than one Guyanas we got. We got a lopsided Guyana and we got another Guyana. One Guyana for the elites and one for the masses. But viewers, I want to say to you, they're going to come to your communities. Look, the $100,000 scam. Huh? Look, the $100,000 scam. Many persons can't receive their $100,000 yet. And you're hearing, let me remind our viewers of how much monies were allocated in the budget, in the supplementary budget in December. And you can't get it. Nobody could talk about where the extra monies went. But all of these are just slush funds for the PPP to squander the monies, to steal the monies, to take it for themselves, their friends, and their families. I know sometimes when we have to talk about these issues, time is not on our side. I know Cheryl is going to be coming on just now, and there's so much that we would want to talk about. But Mark, I want to thank you so much for being here with us. Viewers, you would remember Mark was always here with us, and he's going to continue to be a regular feature on this program, because we've got to let you know from now until that elections day is called. We can talk about the elections process yet. Until that day is called, we will continue to keep you posted and to remind you of who the PPP are. I must remind you, I think today is the death anniversary of Ronald Waddell. I must remind you, Ronald Waddell was gunned down, execution style. We must remember that. Mark, I'm sure you remember some others.
Well, I remember Courtney Cromwell, because Courtney Cromwell and I were in the same class at QC. And we were very good friends, Cromwell was born the 10th of June. I was born the 1st of May. So we were relatively good friends. So when they assassinated him, it really hit me very hard, because it was a very good friend of mine they killed.
So we had Ronald Waddell, Courtney Cromwell. We have Orrin Boston from Essequibo.
Boston, yes.
Quindon Bacchus.
The Henry Boys.
Johann C. Douglas. Kazerki. You remember Kazerki?
I can remember Kazerki, yes.
The Bacchus's brothers. The Headley brothers. Or the Headley brothers. The 1,400 young men who up to now Javio can't give account for. We have to remember those things. We have to remember Shaka Blair, who was shot in his home in front of his wife. We
Yes, it
have
is
to remember
clear.
paper charts. We
Mhm.
can't forget those things. We have to remind you about those things. We have to remember Donna McKinnon, the woman that was shot in front of the office of the president. We must
Mhm.
remember Mark Benskop, who was imprisoned
Mhm.
because they wanted to teach him a lesson. We have to remember these things, folks. The
Mhm.
PPP ain't no easy, folks. They're not easy. They're a set of sanctimonious gangsters, and we have to remind you of their doings. We have to remember that under the coalition, the shipment of cocaine and marijuana was on almost a pause. As soon as
Mhm.
the PPP returned to office, Mark, what happened?
But it increased. It just increased because they opened up the borders basically. The planes were packed with cocaines because the big ones, and only the small ones are being caught, and only the small ones are being prosecuted. And it's very, very unfortunate. It's just PvP. I can't think of any good of PvP, to be honest. I can't struggle to find any good of PvP. And the best thing they can actually do is demit office in 2025.
Well, the people will put them out there. Viewers, I want you to remember that this is not about you, but this is about your children and your grandchildren and your great grandchildren. Your even to your unborn grands and great grands and great great grands, they have debts hanging over their heads that they are not responsible for. And so your action, your decisive action will determine how comfortable your children will be, how comfortable your grandchildren and your great grands will be. And so we've got to get it right. And we will continue at this end to advance the cause so that your injustices can be highlighted and that we will all be able to spread that message that in order for Guyana to grow, the PPP must go. Dr. Devonish, I want to thank you so much for being here with us. Viewers, it's always our pleasure to have you because without you, we would have no advancing the cause. Do take care, be careful on the roadways. I know that there are lots and lots of pledges out there. Lots of cash is going to be thrown at you. Take the cash, but you know what you have to do. Stay well until we see you next week for more on advancing the cause. God bless you. Have a good
Bye
night.
bye. Bye.